Hey, so welcome back to part 2 of this Facebook feed NS layout tutorial, and we're going to continue by creating the rest of the Facebook feed cell. So what I mean is we're going to create this bottom area right here that includes this likes and comments label and this horizontal bar that separates the bottom 3 buttons. So if you are watching this part 2 and you haven't watched part 1 yet, make sure to click the link below in the description to watch part 1 first. Otherwise, this is not going to make a whole lot of sense. Cool. Now let's go back into Xcode and finish up this project right here, right? Okay, we left off on this very last image view right here. And we want to include the likes label by just creating it like this. Likes comments label. That is UI label. I'm going to create a label in here called UI label. Label that text is leaks. 10.7k comments, and the font will be, I think that's a system font of 12 maybe. It doesn't really matter so much as long as you get the idea as to how to add these subviews into the view. That's the main goal here. Okay, adding that subview to the view hierarchy, we get that, and we'll copy this horizontal constraint, but we will say, okay, you belong roughly 12 pixels from the left. Let's comment that. Then we need to put it below the image by saying, okay, I'll give you 8 pixels, call it v3. This is likes comments label. Running that, it's not going to show properly. Well, I guess it is. It's not specify 30 for that, or maybe 24. And 8 pixels right there, just to see what we get. Cool. Now we have some proper spacing between the top and the bottom. It's always good to have like white empty space to create breathing room in your view. That's more of a UX thing. Cool. We will continue by adding this horizontal separator bar. But first, let's change the font of this label. Now I can create the color by using a color like that, but instead of constantly having to divide by 255 and specifying the alpha to 1, we will create a extension method that will be a static class method, just call it RGB, and then we will return a color like this. And we'll just use that color. We'll use that initializer by saying, okay, we want something that says red, green, blue, and then this will say, okay, let's just use that red, green, blue, and always alpha of 1, like that. And now we can replace this color here by saying, okay, wow, where did that go? Okay, UI color, RGB, 155, 161, 171. That's a lot cleaner than specifying the 255 division every single time. Cool. Now we can change that label color very easily by first finding the color, which I already have. And I'm going to say, okay, label, is it text color? UI color, RGB of, it is 226, 228, and 232. Running that, you'll see that that label's color changes to something extremely, extremely light. And why is that? Okay, so we actually want 155, 161, and 171. Yes. Cool. Label looks pretty legible and the color matches to what we want. Now let's create this divider line that we see right here by simply creating a divider line view. Variable names, UI view, let view, UI view. We'll just say, okay, view background color equals UI color RGB. And this is the actual line that we want here. Cool. Turn view. Like so. Next we add it. There. And then we want to grab a horizontal constraint for it. And here, let's use 12 pixels to the left and 12 pixels to the right. Then we'll add it below, specifying a height of 0.5, like that. Then 8 pixels from the bottom will give us that horizontal line. But first, it's going to crash. And let's see, it is crashing because we haven't specified the view inside of here. So constraints are pretty tricky if you don't get it correct inside of your visual formats. Okay, that line is showing up. Now we need to add the final piece, which is the button setup at the very bottom. Awesome, awesome. Let's create that button by saying let like button be a UI button. Yes, UI button. And we'll create it by saying, okay, UI button, that button, let's set the title to be like. And this will be the normal state, which is the default state. Return the button, and then do that. And now we can do a couple of things here. We need to set the title color, like so. Using our extension method again, we'll say, okay, the color is 143 to 150, 63 of normals. Like that, it's 263. And then we add it to our view hierarchy yet again. Let's see, like button, cool. And then let's see, we will add it horizontally to fill out the entire width of the cell, like that. And then we'll add it right at the bottom by saying, okay, V5 is now, let's see, 44 pixels and 8. We'll say like button, like that. Ooh. Okay, that constraint is missing this closing bracket. Cool, now we get the button down here, but you see how the spacing is a little wonky now. I'm gonna remove these 8 pixels because button itself comes with a top padding and a bottom padding like that. And then let's see. So this is actually 163. It's showing up as a purplish hue. And let's bump up the cell's vertical height to 400 just to see more of that cute little puppy dog. This is actually Mark Zuckerberg's his dog. I found his profile on Facebook and decided to take some of his photos. Interesting guy. Cool. Now we need to fix the button so that the label and the thumbs up shows up. And in order to do that, we will just simply set the image like this. And then the image I know is called, I think I called it like that. And let's just use the normal state. And then we'll actually set the labels font to bold. System font of size. And running that, we'll get a like button, and then it's kind of crammed together inside of the button view itself. To fix that, we'll say, okay, let's set some insets for the title here. To do that, we'll say button dot title edge insets equals UI edge insets make 0. So this is top, left, bottom, and right. Okay. That'll give us left of, it's kind of like left of the center. The label is going to be placed 8 pixels, like to the, I guess to the right is what that really means. And okay, now we need to include these buttons, comment and share at the bottom. But as you can tell, it's equally spaced out. And what it means is that the first button, the second button, and the share button takes up 1/3 of the horizontal space. So how do you do that, right? How do you easily say, okay, take up 1/3 of the width? So very, very easy way of doing this that I found is to just include a constraint. And so first, let's create the rest of the buttons. Now I can copy and paste all of this code and create the button, but let's be a little smarter and better programmers about it by saying, okay, give me a function that just returns that button. So let's say bottom button. Well, let's just create a better name. So button for title. Title is a string, and image name is also a string, and that will return us our UI button very conveniently. I'm going to copy and paste all of this stuff up there, and then that gives us the button. Now we need to replace the title, and replace the image name like this, and then we can just get rid of all of this and say, okay, we need to call button for title like that. What did we call that? Like, I guess, yeah. So this is capital L. And then we actually need to call the static method on this feed cell by saying that. And this will be the same thing, button for title. And the title will be comment. And the image will also be comment, but lowercase. And there we go. We will add that comment view onto the subview hierarchy yet again. And now we need to add the constraints. This is the somewhat trickier part. Okay, we find our button constraints here. And then we want to add it as a horizontal constraint by saying, okay, V1 and V0 will take up the exact amount of space like that. but we want it to be equal space. So if we specify v0 to be the space of v1, it will share the space equally. So what we also need to do is include some kind of vertical constraint for that comment button here. You see it's showing up on the second cell down there. And the way to kind of hack that in is not exactly a hack, but I know that the button belongs at the very bottom. So I'm going to say v0 at the very bottom by that bottom edge pipe. We'll say comment button. And then I know it's also a height of 44. So it's going to show up at the very bottom edge, but 44 height like that. And it's equal distance or equal width. So that means that it's sharing the horizontal space equally. Now, if we want to get the other button in there, we'll say, okay, let the share button equal feed cell dot button. And this will say share. And this will say share. Add that in here. Share button. And then we'll copy that. Okay, share button. And then here is the trickier part yet again. Say v2 is our share button. And here, instead of v1, we'll say, okay, v2 and v2. That'll say, okay, share the space equally based on what v2 will be, which is our share button, and then equally space out everything else, which gives us this very, very neatly packed row of buttons. So that was pretty nice and pretty straightforward, hopefully. Now, the non-hack way of doing this bottom row button, which if I had more time, I would do this instead, is to include a separate just a single container view that's empty, or it's not empty, but includes those three buttons in the very bottom, and then specify that as my v5 here, which is that bottom UI element. And inside that, I would just add the three buttons and then expand it horizontally like what we did here, and then completely vertical from top edge to bottom edge of that bottom view. So that's a cleaner way of doing it. You can try to do that if you really wanted to. And let's see. That looks pretty close, I think. It looks pretty good. And so there's also a button up here if we take a look at the Facebook feed. On your app, if you open up your phone, there's like an arrow button here to like block the user. I guess I'll leave it up to you to figure out how to do that. You basically want to add it to the top right edge of the feed cell to make it show up. And the other last thing to fix is, let's say I rotate the screen. You see how it doesn't completely expand edge to edge? And that is because it's not aware of the orientation change inside of the view controller. So what I mean is you need to implement this method here. Okay, size. And we have to say, okay, collection view layout, invalidate layout. And what that'll do is say, okay, when you change the size of the device, just invalidate the layout and redraw yourself completely, which is what it's doing here. It's just redrawing very, very neatly, and the spacing is still maintained properly. Cool. Now, one thing I want to talk about is the sizing of these cells do get very tricky when you have a variable text height for, like, let's say this component here. Usually like your friends updating their status feed includes multiple lines of text, right? And it's always different whenever someone posts a new post. So you have to account for the height of this text block. And also you have to account for the height of this image view. It's always varying if you take a closer look at your Facebook app. The sizes change a lot, and this also includes like an image here with a 2-image row right here that are split, and those are fancier layouts that I'm pretty sure the engineers at Facebook spent a lot of time on perfecting. But this is a simple tutorial. Hopefully you learned a lot about NS layout constraints, and by specifying a extension method to make our lives easier, it is quite simple to add views without dealing with interface builder, and now you can modify exactly pixel by pixel how you want to have your layouts be drawn onto the screen. So yeah, overall pretty easy stuff. Hopefully if you didn't understand how like collection views work, go back and look at part 1 and just previous videos on how collection view cells are registered and laid out. So cool. Hopefully you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, share if you want, and subscribe. Really helps me out to see who's watching and who's enjoying the videos. All right. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a nice day, and goodbye.